On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle, starting a great series on the Law of One, or Law of Ra, as it's sometimes known as well, the raw materials. And it is some fascinating information that was channeled back in 1981. January 15th was the first session that we're going to do today. And this information has, for me, has been life-changing, life-altering. The quick skinny of it is social memory complex Ra started a communication with this group, and they began asking questions about civilization, about why we're here, what is dimensions, what are densities, all of these different, what are beings from other solar systems, other planets, all of this stuff, everything that you would possibly want to understand or ask questions about. They were able to pass these questions onto this Ra group through this individual named Carla, and she was a channel. And there was three of them. There was two gentlemen and Carla. I'm going to get into them. There's 26 sessions, so I'm going to do 26 videos over a period of time. I don't know how quickly I'll do it. This is my second channel. For those of you that maybe know my first channel, it's Dan RadioStyle. I do a lot of information on manifesting and spiritual evolution and those kinds of things. And some of my little bit more crazy stuff I'm putting on this on the Fringe channel. And it's kind of a way for me to separate some of the things, like I said, that are a little more on the crazy side versus some of the things that I think are a little more mainstream, a little easier to digest. But the raw material is something, David Wilcox, a guy that's talked a lot about this, but again, this is something that's just been super important for me, super enlightening for me. Again, this will be probably my fourth time going through this information. And I hope you guys find as much joy in it as I did. It's a little confusing at times, so I'll probably add some commentary here and there. But for the most part, I'm just going to read. So here we go. January 15th, 1981. This is out of the Law of One, Book 1, Session 1. So it starts with Ra. I am Ra. I have not spoken through this instrument before. We had to wait until she was precisely tuned as we send a narrow band vibration. We greet you in love and in the light of our infinite Creator. We have watched your group. We have been called to your group, for you have a need for this diversity of experiences and channeling, which go with a more intensive, or as you might call it, advanced approach to the system of studying the pattern of illusions of your body, your mind, and your spirit, which you call seeking the truth. We hope to offer you a somewhat different slant upon the information which is always and ever the same. At this time, we would be glad to attempt to speak to any subject or question which those entities in the room may have potential use in the requesting. Questioner, do you have a specific purpose? And if so, could you tell us something of what your purpose is? Ra, I am Ra. We communicate now. We are those who are of the Law of One. In our vibration, the polarities are harmonized. The complexities are simplified. The paradoxes have a solution. We are one. That is our nature and our purpose. We are old upon your planet and have served with varying degrees of success in transmitting the Law of One, of unity, of singleness to your peoples. We have walked your planet. We have seen the faces of your people. However, we now feel the great responsibility of staying in the capacity of removing the distortions and powers that have been given to the Law of One. We will continue in this until, shall we say, your cycle is appropriately ended. If not this one, then the next. We are not a part of time, and thus we are able to be here with you in any one of your times. Does this give you enough information from which to extract your purpose, my brother? Questioner, yes, thank you. Ra, I am Ra. We appreciate your vibrations. Is there another query? Questioner, I've heard of the name of Ra in the connections with the Egyptians. Are you connected with that Ra in any way? Ra, I am Ra. Yes, the connection is congruency. May we elucidate? What do you not understand? Questioner, could you give me a little more details about your role with the Egyptians? Ra, I am Ra. The identity of the vibration Ra is our identity. We as a group, or what you would call a social memory complex, made contact with a race of your planet kind, which you call Egyptians. Others from our density made contact at the same time in South America and the so-called lost cities were their attempts to contribute to the law of one. We spoke to one who heard and understood and was in a position to decree the law of one. However, the priests and peoples of that era quickly distorted our message, robbing it of the, shall we say, compassion with which unity is informed by its very nature. Since it contains all, it cannot abhor any. When we're no longer able to have appropriate channels through which to enunciate the law of one, we removed ourselves from the now hypocritical position which we had allowed ourselves to be placed in. Other myths, shall we say, having more to do with polarity and the things of your vibration that are complex, again, took over in that particular society complex. Does this form a sufficient amount of information, or could we speak further? Is there another query? Questioner. The question was lost because the questioner was sitting too far from the tape recorder to be recorded. Now, when they were recording these, there was multiple tape recorders, mainly because they were having issues with the tape recorders. And then as they progressed through this, I think they had 3 of them going at one time. They had all these microphones attached to to Carla on the front of her. And there's some pictures that you'll probably see as this video is playing. But these tape recorders were how they kind of recorded everything. And so sometimes it was a little difficult to hear them. So again, the question we didn't hear, but Ra obviously did. So Ra responds, Ra, I am Ra. Consider, if you will, that the universe is infinite. This has yet to be proven or disproven, but we can assure you that there is no end to yourselves, your understanding, what you would call your journey of seeking, or your perception of the creation. That which is infinite cannot be many, for manyness is finite concept. To have infinity, you must identify or define the infinity as unity. Otherwise, the term does not have any referent or meaning. In an infinite creator, there is only unity. You have seen simple examples of unity. You have seen the prism from which shows all colors stemming from the sunlight. This is a simplistic example of unity. In truth, there is no right or wrong. There is no polarity, for all will be, as you would say, reconciled at some point in your dance through the mind-body-spirit complex, which you amuse yourselves by distorting in various ways at this time. This distortion is not in any case necessary. It is chosen by each of you as an alternative to understanding the complete unity of thought which binds all things. You are not speaking of similar or somewhat like entities or things. You are everything, every being, every emotion, every event, every situation. You are unity. You are infinity. You are love light, light love. You are. This is the law of one. May we enunciate in more detail? Questioner. No. I am Ra. Is there another query at this time? Questioner. Can you comment on the coming planetary changes in our physical reality? Ra. I am Ra. I prefer to wait till this instrument has reached a proper state of depth and singleness or one-pointedness before we spoke. The changes are very, very trivial. We do not concern ourselves with the conditions which bring about harvest. Questioner. If an individual makes efforts to act as a catalyst in general to increase the awareness of the planetary consciousness, is he of any aid in that direction, or is he doing nothing but acting upon himself? Ra. I am Ra. We shall answer your question in 2 parts, both of which are important equally. Firstly, you must understand that the distinction between yourself and others is not visible to us. We do not consider that a separation exists between the consciousness-raising efforts of the distortion which you project as a personality and the distortion that you project as another personality. Thus, to learn is the same as to teach, unless you are not teaching what you are learning, in which case you have done them little good. This understanding should be pondered by your mind-body-spirit complex, as it is a distortion which plays a part in your experiences at this nexus. To turn to the second part of the response, may we state our understanding, limited though it is. Group individuated consciousness is that state of sharing understanding with the other distortions of mind body spirit complexes, which are within the evident reach of the mind body spirit complex individual or group. Thus, we are speaking to you and accepting both our distortions and your own in order to enunciate the laws of creation, more especially the law of one. We are not available to many of your peoples, for this is not an easily understood way of communicating or type of philosophy. However, our very being is hopefully a poignant example of both the necessity and the near hopelessness of attempting to teach. Each of those in this group is striving to use, digest, and diversify the information which we are sending to the instrument into the channel of this mind-body-spirit complex without distortion. The few whom you will illuminate by sharing your light are far more than enough reason for the greatest possible effort. To serve one is to serve all. Therefore, we offer the question back to you to state that indeed it is the only activity worth doing. To learn, teach, or teach, learn. There is nothing else which is of aid in demonstrating the original thought except your very being, and the distortions that come from the unexplained, inarticulate, or mystery-clad being are many. Thus, to attempt to discern and weave your way through as many group mind, body, spirit distortions as possible among your peoples in the course of your teachings is a very good effort to make. We can speak no more valiantly of your desire to serve. May we speak in any other capacity upon this subject. Questioner: will you be available for communication? Can we call on you in the future? Ra: I am Ra. We have good contact with this instrument because of her recent experiences with trance. She is to be able to communicate our thoughts in your future. However, we advise care in disturbing the channel for a few moments, and then the proper procedure for aiding an instrument who has, to some extent, the need of a re-entering the mind-body-spirit complex, which the instrument has chosen for the life experience of this time-space. Do you understand how to nurture this instrument? Questioner: no. Could you explain it? Ra: we suggest first a brief period of silence, then the repetition of all instruments' vibratory complex of sound in your density, which you call name. Repeat until an answer is obtained. Then the laying on of the hands at the neck region for a brief period so that the instrument may recharge batteries which are not, shall we say, full of the essence of this particular field at this time. And finally, a gift of water into which the love of all present has been given. This will restore this entity, for her distortions contain great sensitivity towards the vibrations of love, and charged water will affect comfort. Do you understand? Questioner: not completely. Ra: I am Ra. We search your mind to find the vibration nickname. It is this vibration from which you contain the largest amounts of what you would call love. Others would call this entity first name. The charging of the water is done by those present placing their hands over the glass and visualizing the power of love entering the water. This will charge that very effective medium with those vibrations. This instrument is, at this time, quite fatigued. However, her heart is such that she continues to remain open to us and useful as a channel. This is why we have spent the time-space explaining how the distortions of what you may call fatigue may be ameliorated. Under no circumstances should this instrument be touched until she has responded to her name. I do not wish to take this instrument beyond her capacity for physical energy. It grows low. Therefore, I must leave this instrument. I leave you in glory and peace of unity. Go forth in peace, rejoicing in the power of the one Creator. I am. That is the end of session 1. And one thing I do want to point out that's really important, and again, this is a little confusing, and certainly you can download these books. I've got a link below where you can download the PDF, and you can follow along. Hopefully I didn't butcher too much of it. But the one thing I do want to point out after all this is done, of course I'm here as kind of a spiritual person as well, but the charging of the water is something that is really important to consider. People have talked about the 2 cups method when it comes to manifesting and all these different things, but ultimately, when we put energy into the water. It's the same as blessing food. It's the same. Like when you put that energy into the food, that love and that light into the food you're about to eat, the water or liquids you're about to drink, when you're able to put that energy into it, it creates charged food and charged water, charged with love, charged with light. And when we ingest that, that energy goes into us and it becomes us and it is us. Now, everything is us to begin with, so we're putting energy into a physical substance that we're then putting back into our own bodies. I think it's almost symbolic, if you will, to a degree, but at the same time, it is how physicality seems to work as well. Again, three-dimensional person like the rest of us, trying to understand very complex, multidimensional aspects of life. But charging water, charging our food is a major, powerful, helpful component for us maintaining our vibrations, raising our vibrations, and certainly being able to be more involved with why we're here, with the purpose of life. And one thing that we are going to get to in this is the harvest and the concept of harvest. And supposedly, at some point, when we finally end this giant cycle, and there's cycles within cycles, that there's going to be a harvesting. There's a harvest for the service to self component, and there's a harvest to service to others component. And to be harvested from service to others, you just have to be helpful or service to others just over 50% of the time. So just barely over 50% of the time, you've got to be trying to help others, be a part of others, help bring love to the world, being a part of, right, to give service to others. The service to self path is very tricky, and it requires 95% adherence, meaning you have to be self-serving 95% of the time to actually graduate or harvest out as a service to self being. This harvest is coming sometime within our lifetimes, most likely, sometime within the next so many years. And this material, I think, was given to us to try to help, one, undo what happened back in ancient Egypt, which when they came here and taught, a lot of their methods and messages were distorted and changed and kind of sort of like religion is done. They kind of take something that's beautiful and perfect and then use it to their own accord, use it to try to control people. And that's exactly what happened back in Egypt. It's what happened with religion. It's why for those of us that, on the Western side of the world anyways, like Christianity has got some very similar components to ancient Egyptology. Whole Isis and Osiris and right, all that stuff. Very similar to the Christ being born unto a virgin. The whole concept, those stories seem to have an overlap. So a big part of why we're here, a big part of what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring about harvest and help as many people as we possibly can. Law of One materials have made an enormous difference with me. If you guys want, you can read them on your own. Download the PDF, got the link below. Appreciate all your support. And if you guys are interested in manifesting and ways to be more involved with manifesting, check out my other channel. There's a link below as well. It's called Dan RadioStyle. On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.